Welcome back to another episode of Agentic AI, the future of intelligent systems. Today, I want to start with something unusual. Imagine this: a company approves a major budget for AI. Excitement spreads, teams begin experimenting, developers get access to coding assistance, employees start using intelligent copilots, agents begin writing code, searching systems, summarizing meetings, generating documents, researching information. Productivity feels like it is accelerating. Everything looks promising. And then, just a few months later, someone notices something unexpected. The budget is nearly gone. Not next year, not after a long transformation journey. Quietly, unexpectedly, and suddenly, a question emerges. How exactly did intelligence become this expensive? Because something important is changing. For decades, organizations understood software costs. You bought licenses, paid subscriptions, managed infrastructure. Spending felt relatively predictable. More users, higher cost, less usage, lower activity. The relationship felt manageable. But agentic AI changes the equation. Because in the age of intelligent systems, you are no longer simply paying for software. Increasingly, you are paying for thinking. Now, that may sound strange. How do you pay for thinking? The answer hides inside something most people rarely notice: tokens. Now, before this starts sounding technical, do not worry. Think of tokens as tiny units of intelligence, the invisible currency powering modern AI. Every question, every response, every reasoning step, every search, every retry, every piece of generated output quietly consumes them. And here is where things become interesting. Traditional software waits, you click, it responds. Done. Predictable. But agents behave differently. An agent may decide to think longer, search multiple systems, try several approaches, retry failed attempts, call tools, coordinate information, reason step by step, and suddenly what looked like one simple interaction may quietly become hundreds of invisible actions underneath. A single coding task, perhaps multiple model calls, a research workflow, several reasoning chains, a meeting summary, large context windows, pulling huge amounts of information. And none of this feels expensive in the moment because intelligence feels effortless. You ask, it responds, everything feels instant, invisible, until someone looks at the bill. And increasingly, organizations are beginning to experience what might become one of the first major surprises of the agentic era: token shock. Recently, some companies reportedly discovered that AI budgets expected to last a year were disappearing far faster than expected, in some cases, within months. Why? Because intelligent systems scale differently. A traditional software tool behaves relatively predictably, but agents create hidden layers of activity underneath the surface. One employee using a coding assistant may trigger thousands of reasoning steps per day. Multiply that across engineering teams, across customer service, across analysts, across sales, across operations, and suddenly intelligence starts behaving less like software and more like infrastructure. Always running, always reasoning, always consuming. And here is where the story becomes even more fascinating because organizations are beginning to ask difficult questions, questions nobody had to ask before. Does every task need the smartest model available? Does every workflow deserve maximum reasoning? Should every meeting transcript be stored forever? Do we really need trillion parameter intelligence to summarize routine updates? Or are we quietly building systems that overthink simple work? Because perhaps the hidden challenge of agentic AI is not simply intelligence, it is efficiency. Now, this becomes even more interesting when agents enter the picture. Imagine an employee asks an AI assistant to solve a problem. Simple enough. But underneath, the agent may search documentation, call multiple tools, generate options, retry if uncertain, validate outputs, compare possibilities, ask follow up questions internally, and perhaps continue working long after the user walks away. Suddenly, one request becomes many, one task becomes a chain reaction, and perhaps for the first time, organizations begin confronting a surprising reality. Intelligence is no longer free to scale endlessly. Every extra reasoning step has a cost. Every unnecessary retry matters. Every oversized model decision matters. Every token counts. And maybe this introduces a completely new kind of governance challenge. Not software governance, not cloud governance, intelligence governance. Because perhaps future organizations will manage something entirely new: reasoning budgets, limits for how much intelligence gets used for certain tasks, rules for when smaller models are enough, policies for when deeper reasoning creates value, systems designed to avoid waste. Not because companies want less intelligence, but because they want smarter intelligence, efficient intelligence. After all, humans already do this naturally. You do not spend maximum mental effort deciding what socks to wear. But you may think deeply about an important career move. Context matters, effort matters, judgment matters. And perhaps the smartest organizations in the future will not simply deploy more AI. They will deploy intelligence thoughtfully. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. In many organizations today, nobody fully understands where all the tokens are going. Thousands of prompts, thousands of retries, invisible agentic workflows, generated meeting notes nobody reads, repeated searches, duplicate reasoning, agents talking to agents, quietly accumulating what may become a new kind of technical debt, intelligence debt, or perhaps more accurately, token debt. And maybe this becomes one of the defining lessons of the agentic era. The challenge is no longer simply adopting AI. That part is accelerating quickly. The harder challenge may become learning how to govern intelligence responsibly, not limiting innovation, not slowing experimentation, but learning where intelligence creates value and where it quietly becomes excess. Because perhaps the future winners in agentic AI will not be the organizations consuming the most intelligence. They may be the organizations using intelligence wisely, knowing when deeper reasoning matters, knowing when simplicity is enough, knowing when thinking harder improves outcomes, and when it merely burns tokens. Because maybe the future of agentic AI will not simply be about building smarter systems. It may also be about learning when enough intelligence is enough. Until next time, keep questioning not only what intelligent systems can do, but what they quietly cost beneath the surface.